Hi, this is Anthony. Welcome back to my show. About 9 months ago, I posted a poll where I asked my viewers about their thoughts on revoking tax exempt status of churches. And that's certainly the goal of many people in the ex or anti Scientology world. So, my question is many in the ex Scientology community are working towards trying to get the United States government to revoke the Church of Scientology's tax exempt status. I believe that this is a tricky situation because American governments generally do not want to be seen doing anything that appears to be an attack on religion in general or specific religious institutions. What government bureaucrat wants to say no tax exempt status to Scientology because they're bad, and no to the LDS Church because they already have too much money that they don't spend on charity, and no to the Catholic Church because of past and current abuses, but yes to everyone else? So, what are your thoughts on tax exempt status for churches? Now, it's been up for 9 months, 107 votes. 2% of the people say if you call yourself a church, you should get tax exempt status. And that's basically the policy in the United States as far as the IRS and the federal government's concerned. 50% of the respondents out of 107 say no, churches should enjoy tax exempt status. So no churches. And I happen to agree with that. But I think that we need to reevaluate our entire tax system. But that is my thoughts on the matter. 36% of the people say government should decide on a case-by-case basis. And in some instances, case-by-case bases are certainly a valid way of looking at things. But again, it goes back to how do you decide, which is a good church, which is a bad church? How bad do you have to be to lose it? I come from a Catholic background, and certainly throughout 2,000 years, there's been a lot of abuses in the Catholic Church and their participation in crusades and wars and all kinds of things like that. And certainly there's a lot of SA that has gone on probably for 2,000 years and continues to the present day. But the Catholic Church throughout the world also does a lot of good with charity and hospitals and providing health care and money and other charitable assistance to people, both Catholic and non-Catholic. And there's a lot of other churches that provide homeless services and things like that in the United States and throughout the world. So it's very difficult to decide, and as I mentioned, I don't think any bureaucrat wants to make that decision. 7% of the people say difficult choice. They've not made a decision yet on which one of those, and other thoughts. So I got 9 comments, and let's look at them. This person says, should follow the law as it exists in the UK. Organizations have to show evidence of the work that they do in order to be tax-free. So that's a good point. Tax breaks on charitable work that is not limited to church members. Tax the rest. That's also a good thought there. Becca Jean, who posts a lot of comments to my videos, and I really appreciate it. She says, I believe most churches of various beliefs are well-meaning, kind, and helpful to people. But I do believe that once it is proven to be hurtful, illegal, detrimental to life, they should be held accountable, especially when using and abusing the very tax things such as the police and fire that they don't pay into. The old, children, assaulted, captive, etc., for example, Scientology, LDS, Potter's House, and many others should be accountable to pay as well. As for anti-Scientologists, they were duped, as I once was, or born in with no say. That being said, I think they're in a long line of generations of exposing Scientology, think doing a good job at it. At the same time, having a little fun as well as the dangers of swatting. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. VTPSTTU, I'm not quite sure what that stands for. I assume that it's a male. and they respond to a lot of my videos. They post a lot, and I really appreciate it. He and I don't always agree on everything, but his comments are well thought out, and I'm going to go through some of them here. I haven't read all of this, but it looked good. And, this is one of those things. Anything dealing with government, if you've ever been in government or on a committee where you're trying to come up with rules and regulations or laws, it's very difficult because the world is full of a lot of what ifs that are very valid. Not what if asteroid hits us and kills us all, but there's a lot of what ifs in life that, if you look at the situation, can come up that create a lot of exceptions to an ironclad rule that a committee might come up with. So they say, I don't know the full history of tax exemption for churches. When our founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they didn't exempt churches from the federal income tax because they didn't have a federal income tax. Instead, they expressly forbid the federal government from having a federal income tax on anyone at all. That's true. I've never looked at whether some states taxed churches or other states didn't tax churches. Many constitutional scholars say that the Constitution originally applied only to the federal government. They say that nothing in the Constitution or the way it was interpreted in 1787 would have prevented individual states from having individual state religions. If states were allowed to have state religions, maybe they would have taxed some churches and not others. Maybe some states taxed all churches and other states didn't tax any churches. That would be interesting information to have when looking at this question. The 14th Amendment tried to apply the Bill of Rights to the states. At times, this amendment seems to have been written poorly and in a way that has created more problems. At that time, the Union states were trying to punish the Confederate states, and many people weren't interested in creating something that would do what was right going into the future. Instead, people seem to want to put their passion into writing an amendment that expressed their malice. The amendment isn't terrible, but some things have caused problems. The biggest of these right now is the whole birthright citizenship issue. Regardless of that, most of us see the 14th Amendment as expanding the Bill of Rights so that a state cannot declare a state religion. And this is 9 months ago when this person wrote it. Certainly in the last week, birthright citizenship has come up now that we have a new president. The federal income tax didn't exist until 1909. I'm not sure if that's true or if it was 1913, but certainly around that time, and this writer might well be accurate in this. Applying the principles of our country's founding still makes sense, but we need to understand that the choice of whether to exempt churches from the federal income tax was made about 120 years after the Constitution established the freedom of religion guaranteed in our First Amendment. We could try to examine the issue from the perspective of our founding fathers, but we need to understand that the founding fathers would be asking, why have you instituted a federal income tax? I don't remember who first said the power to tax is the power to destroy. Not remembering who first said that, I don't remember when he made that statement. To the extent that we believe that the power to tax is the power to destroy, I understand exempting churches from income taxes. We don't want the government having the power to destroy any particular religion. Once upon a time, we were a people who understood that giving the government power to destroy a particular religion was dangerous for all of us, regardless of how we feel about that religion. Today, people don't seem to be as dedicated to this principle. At one time, many people believed that Roman Catholics were inherently dangerous and that some people wanted the government to limit the number of Roman Catholics who could come into the country. Today, we don't see the Roman Catholic Church as an existential threat to the survival of our nation. We can be angry at abuses by that church, but overall, we don't think that the continued existence of a strong Roman Catholic Church is likely to destroy the United States. That no Roman Catholics have ever flown in airplanes into buildings while clutching their rosaries for support has made that acceptance look like a good idea. Things had been different, maybe many of us would feel differently. For those who don't believe that the power to tax is the power to destroy, allowing the government to tax churches wouldn't seem dangerous. To them, a church is just another organization that takes in huge amounts of money and should pay taxes on that money. To them, a church is just another organization providing a service, and that service is no more sacred or deserving of tax-exempt status than a call-in computer support service or an OnlyFans account. I don't know that much about the Church of Scientology. My sense is that many things about the church are negative, but I don't think the church represents an existential threat to the nation. I understand taking the attitude that Scientology is a business and not really a church, but I can see where many people would feel the same way about Roman Catholics or any other religious organization. At this point, I oppose revoking the tax-exempt status of churches in general because I don't trust the government. If we revoke the tax-exempt status of churches, we would be transferring a huge amount of money and therefore power from the churches to the government. The government is too powerful and too corrupt already. If we could make massive cuts to the power of the federal government and many state governments, then giving them the additional power to tax churches wouldn't bother me as much. The government isn't going to tax churches in order to return more money and power to the people who earn that money. Instead, the government wants to tax churches in order to expand its power at the expense of both churches and the people. So I really appreciate that. This person leaves many good comments. Again, I don't necessarily have to agree with everything that they've stated, either as an opinion or a fact, but they do have a lot of good thoughts and put a lot of effort into it, and so I want to recognize that. And then there's a few more. I think that if a church is average and do not do as Scientology does, stalk you when you leave or ask for ambiguous donations, and are not like mega churches and are just entertainment at this point, I think it's fair to give tax-exempt status, but only after seeing how the church operates first. Again, then you're having to pick bureaucrats or civil servants that go to church services, audit their books, stand around and watch them and try to make a determination on how worthy they are on whether they should or shouldn't have to pay taxes. I agree that it's kind of a gray area, but it's a very difficult one. So I want to stop now. I appreciate everyone's attention. I appreciate everybody's comments and their support. And certainly if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I would appreciate it. Hit the like button too. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll talk to you later.